Hello Flosstube and welcome back to another episode of Ros Clark Craft. It's lovely to have you back with me. I'm Ros Clark. This is my home in real life. This is my home on the internet. You'll also find me as Ros Clark Craft on Instagram and on Etsy. Is that it? I think that's it. I mean, I think you can maybe find bits of me on Facebook, but I don't really put stuff there. And most of my Facebook stuff is private, so you can ignore that bit. Right, welcome if you're a new subscriber, particularly. It feels like minutes ago that I was just saying, oh, I'm just so close to 300, I'm just so close to 300, and we're now at 345, which is amazing. So thank you so much if you subscribed recently. If you're watching and you enjoy watching me, do subscribe. It's a huge encouragement to me. You don't have to then watch all my videos ever, but it just lets me know that if you watch it, you enjoyed what you watched, you might like to watch more in the future. So if that's you, do subscribe, do like the video, leave a comment. I always love to hear from people. I apologise if we wobble a bit like we did just now. My dog just walked over the stand that has the phone on it. I'm hoping he's going to lie down and go to sleep, but who knows? He's been a very naughty boy today. So all bets are off, really. I would bring him up to you, but he really doesn't like being picked up, so we won't try. I think that's just easier. So I've got some nearly finished objects to show you. Some works in progress to show you, more than I normally have. Some plans to talk about. I've just realised, oh no, I wrote a list of things that I wanted to remember and I thought I'd left it on the other side of the room, but I have got it here. So let's get going with nearly finished objects. You'll see what I mean. So the first is this. You've seen this as a finished object before. I'd done all the stitching. I put beads on it. I splattered it with pink and purple because I had a stain on it, and now you absolutely can't distinguish the stain from the rest of it. So this is a pattern by Little Dove Designs. When I stitched it, it was called Spring Wings, and it was from the Caterpillar Cross Stitch Club box. You can now buy it as a pattern directly from Little Dove Designs, and it's got a new name and I cannot remember what it is, but you'll recognise it. Anyway, I think it may have a slightly different colourway too. I used more or less the threads that came in the kit. I included this extra lighter pink, which I don't think was in the kit, and also all the beading was my idea to make it a little bit sparkly, which I quite like. I was going to do something clever with the hoop, and then I found that I had this hoop that's got this sort of pink wood stain finish. It was quite a palaver getting it on. I don't know why. I have put interfacing on the Ada, so maybe that's what's just given it that extra level of thickness that, yeah, made it a real effort. So it's not coming off this again. I do obviously need to just tidy up the edges, so that's why it's nearly finished. But it will look like I could have done a deceitful thing and just said, look, fully finished object, fully finished. Absolutely, don't look at the back. So I do need to finish off the back, but that won't take very long, and it may not be completely centered in the hoop, but it was such a palaver getting it in the hoop that we are not taking it out again. So that's nice, and it will be in time to go up in the hoop gallery while it is still officially spring. And to be honest, I think it can stay there through summer. You still have butterflies in the summer, don't you? So, you know, that's fine. It's just, you know, it's just pretty, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm pleased with that. Like I say, nearly fully finished. The other one that's nearly fully finished, I am so pleased with. So you remember I'd stitched Tulips and Stars, which is one of Yasmin's Made with Love's charity projects that she was doing in exchange for donations when she ran the London Marathon. It is now available to purchase in her Etsy shop, and I'll put the link below. And I had thought I would finish it into a project bag. And I also had a thing that I bought a few months ago when I went to visit the Cave Facet exhibition at the Fashion and Textile Museum in London. And I'd been really disappointed there wasn't very much fabric on sale, because I'd been really ready to buy fabric. There were a couple of jelly rolls, but they weren't my favourite, and I was just like, no, I don't want to just buy those for the sake of it. But they did sell really fabulous tea towels. And I was like, maybe I could do something with that. So I had thought, oh, that'll be 2 project bags. And then today, one of the reasons why this has taken so long is I had to clean up my sewing room. Yeah, quite a lot before I could even really get in it. My sewing room, it's not in my house because my house is too small to have a room for that sort of thing. I have a shepherd's hut in the garden. I'm very lucky. I have a shepherd's hut in the garden. It has electricity. It doesn't have running water, but it has electricity, and that is my sewing room. Yeah, it was an absolute bomb site. I mean, you could barely get in the door, let alone make space to actually sew anything or do anything. So anyway, I spent about 3 hours tidying up and then about 2 hours sewing. So what really, you know, I knew that was going to be the case. I knew it wasn't just going to be a case of sewing project bag. It was going to be a huge tidy up first. But anyway, when I put them together, I was suddenly like, oh, that's not 2 project bags. That's 1 project bag with all of it in it. So this is my Tulips and Stars Cafe Facet project bag. So on the back, that's the other half of the tea towel. So you can see it's just printed, but it's printed to look like this hexagon patchwork design that he's very well known for. And all of these prints are Cafe Facet prints. This was the other half of the tea towel. So you can see some of the same prints and colours. And I just thought, actually, it really looks fabulous with the colours that I'd used for the Tulips and Stars project. So I put in a dark green zip. It's all lined with the same Dashwood, not Dashwood Studio, what is it? Ruby Star Studio, Ruby Star Society, orange with this sort of pink floral print that I've used the same fabric for the binding. I think I had half a yard of it, and that was enough to do the lining throughout and then the binding, and there was a small amount left. If I'd had a fat quarter, I would have needed different fabric for the binding, definitely. I just think that looks fabulous. Now, I was in Hobbycraft a couple of months ago, and they had for sale, first time I've seen it, it's the only time I've seen it in the UK, Bozal. And that is Bozal Soft and Stable, I think it's called. It's what Elizabeth Ann Stitch uses for her project bags. And like I said, I'd never seen it before. I normally use fusible interfacing. And I just thought, oh, that'd be interesting. So I picked some up, and I thought, well, I'll use it for this. And you can see, it does give a, well, I don't know if you can see, but I can certainly feel it gives a really nice, firm feel to the project bag. It's, I think it's described as like a foam interfacing, and you can definitely feel that foamness to it. It feels like if you made a laptop case out of this, it will be quite protective, or a tablet case or something like that. It was quite expensive. I think the amount that I bought, I can't remember what I paid for it. I think it would do 2 project bags probably. The other one might need to be a little bit smaller than this. But yeah, so it wasn't huge amounts and it wasn't super cheap. I can't remember what it was. I'm not sure that I would always use it for project bags because I don't use loads of project bags. I don't need them all to be super amazingly beautiful. I'm not, you know, a sort of 45 whips person. I'm a 3 whips and too many person. So I don't need loads of project bags, and I don't need them to be super smashing great. You know, so I'm glad I bought it, and I'm glad I used it for this. I think probably what I will do is save the rest of it for when I want to make something a bit more substantial than a project bag. If I make, I'm thinking about making something not like an overnight bag, but a retreat bag that has sort of all my sort of notions and things in it, or maybe something like that, that I want to be a bit sturdier, I might use for that. Or if I were going to make an overnight bag, or the kind of things that Elizabeth Ann Stitch makes, then absolutely this would be a really good go-to project for that. The other thing actually, which I've not made a project bag out of, but I'd like to try, I used to use, ages ago when I used to make bags a bit more frequently, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I used to use pelmet interfacing. So it's designed to make pelmets over windows, so it's quite rigid but sewable. And I also wonder whether that might make quite good project bags. Don't know. Anyway, again, you can see not completely finished. I've sewn, I machine stitched the binding on the front. I'm going to hand stitch it on the back because I'm so rubbish at binding. I like to make my own bias binding because then it matches, but I'm not good at making it very even, and I'm not good at sewing it very evenly. And I think that's, you know, it's not going to take me very long. This evening, I'm hoping to finally remember to go to another Across the Pond Stitch and Chat. And I thought this would be a really good thing to do during that, just to hand sew that binding down, because it's not complicated. And I can see it pretty easily. So again, nearly finished object, but I'm so proud of it. I think the stitching looks great. I think the project bag looks great. I think it doesn't quite look professional because I made it. So, you know, this is not perfectly lined up here, but it's near enough. And yeah, it feels sturdy and stable. I did a reasonably good job on the zip. It's not completely straight, but it's near enough. Again, I'm pleased with the sewing I did on the cross stitch part. I'd thought about, well, should I just, you know, do sashing around it, or should I try and do sort of a facing type thing? And then I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna fold it over and top stitch it, and that's what I did, and it looks perfect, more or less, near enough. Yeah, so I interfaced the cross stitching and ironed it before I sewed it to the front fabric. Then I added the Bosal to the front and the back, and also the top part here. And I just sort of played it by ear, to be honest. I didn't follow a specific tutorial in my mind. I've done enough things where I've inserted a zip and made them into bags and done linings that I just didn't. And the size was really dictated by the finished piece of the cross stitch and the size of the tea towel. I've got another tea towel, actually, not from K Facet, one that I bought from Dunelm ages ago that I really liked, and I think I might make a project bag from that as well. Or I might make, I think I might make a different sort of size and shape. I really like the smaller size ones that Evertote have been doing for Stitch North. Do you see the ones with the 9-patch patchwork on the front, and then sort of made into square project bags with a little bit of a box bottom? Might try that with that tea towel. It's nice, they're nice, you know, I mean, there are tea towels and tea towels, aren't there? But if you get a really nice firm linen one, it almost feels a bit canvasy, this one that I've got here. I don't know that they're always the best tea towels, but they're really nice quality fabric for project bags, it turns out. Anyway, so those are the things that I have been finishing. What have I been working on? Well, I have been working on this, which is good because the wedding is in 2 weeks' time. Clearly, they are only going to get this and not the other one that I thought I might do as a matching pair. But that's fine. I have had a thought. I think I said before, I'm going to leave off the Bible reference that should go here because they know the Bible reference. But I might put their names in. I'll see. I'll see how we go. I have become a massive convert to Markup RXP. I got it for the full coverage, which I'll show you in a minute. And now I'm like obsessed with putting all my PDF patterns into it so that I can check off stitches and tell you how, I mean, I'm not adding up how many stitches I've done, but I can tell you what percentage I'm at. And I'm at 75% on this. I think it won't be done by the end of the weekend, but it will certainly be done middle of next week, I think, which will be fine. And then I'm just going to do a pretty simple hoop finish for this, so that won't be difficult. So I'm reasonably confident it will be done by the wedding. Oh, I'm very confident it will be done by the wedding, but I'm glad that I'm not thinking, oh, and now I've got to do another one. I have made 1 or 2 changes to the design. There was a weird bit down here which had a whole bit of leaf and berryness that just wasn't replicated anywhere else in the pattern, so I thought it was a bit weird, so I just put in some of the flowers, and I'm going to work around this way and then do some fudging if I need to there. But more or less I've been stitching it as it comes. It's on 40 count Zweigart Platinum maybe, and I'm doing it with my own choice of colours. There's a Gentle Arts Green with Envy, and then the rest are classic Colourworks, Chopped Chives and Steamed Broccoli. It's very vegetarian, this. And the blues are Cool Azul, Deep Blue Sea, Wavy Navy. So those are quite sea, and the greens are quite vegetably. Anyway, I think it works. I think the colours work nicely together. I do think you can tell it's one of those charts that's designed and never stitched, and maybe converted from some artwork. As you stitch it, there are things you think, that's weird. You just wouldn't have designed it like that. So I'm sort of correcting those as I go and just, you know, doing it how I like it. It's fine. I would not recommend particularly this shop, but it's hard, you know, if you're looking for, well, I find it hard. If I'm looking for sort of contemporary Christian designs, there aren't loads, and a lot of what is there is just not me. And I was looking for, obviously, something for the wedding, and I sort of looked at wedding samplery things, and people suggested some, and, you know, there are some really beautiful contemporary ones as well as more traditional ones, but I just thought about it in the end. I was like, actually, a wedding is one day of your life. I'd like to do something that is more about their whole lives. So that's where I ended up with this. And I did have enough fabric to do two, but as it turns out, they're only going to get one. They might get one for Christmas or something like that. Anyway, I'm pleased to finally be making good progress on that, and I hope to have it done in the next few days. Right, I've got two other things. Let's start with the full coverage. Sorry. So last time I was full of full coverage woes. I'd done the birthday start, then I had decided I needed to grid it, and I'd gridded it wrong, and then, oh, it's just all one catastrophe after another. Even after I filmed, I then realised I'd gridded it wrong again. I mean, honestly, literally, you just got to count to 10. Anyway, so took almost everything out that I'd stitched by that point. Not quite, because I'm like, if I can salvage anything, I'm going to at this point, but it was pretty soul destroying. I even ended up having to take out the stitches that I had put in during the birthday start. It was just, and I was just like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. Anyway, I eventually got into the groove, and I have it set up on Markup RXP. I have the grids now basically in the right, no, they are in the right place. I'm not going to swear every stitch I've stitched is perfectly in the right place, but more or less. So let me just remind you, this is what it's going to look like one day. This is where I've started. Do you see that little seed head there? I mean, fix that firmly in your mind as the most important part of the design, because, oh, it's all crinkled, obviously. Ta-da! That is that seed head. Yeah. And so what this is, let me tell you, it's not one, it is 2 page finishes. Now, admittedly, one of those page finishes has 18 stitches on it, but they were the 18 that caused me most trouble, so I'm going to count it. And then the other sort of page finish is, again, not a very full page. But still, I have done, out of the full 24 pages, 2 of them. So there are 15 full-size pages, 3 small strips down here, and then the really tiny ones across the bottom that literally have 1 row of stitching. But anyway, I've done 2. I do now feel like I'm in a groove with it. I know how to do it. I'm actually genuinely really loving stitching on it now. Now that I feel like, you know, it makes sense. I feel confident that the stitches I'm putting in are in the right place. This is really coming out the wrong colour on the screen, just so you know. So this fabric is much more pink than purple. And let's see if we fold it so you can see. I mean, you can see this whole thing is going to be basically full. That is, there is not a large margin on here. Oh, that's just my needle. Yeah, I know, you're not supposed to leave your needle in. Sue me. Yeah, so it's going to be that big, and you can see the amount that I've done of it. But still, I can't remember what percentage it was, but it was, you know, whole numbers of percents, not just tiny decimal places of percents. And that was encouraging to me. So yeah, I can't stitch on it all that much because I have got a lot of model stitching to do. So the wedding stitch is the top priority because the wedding is coming whatever happens. And there's quite a lot of model stitching that is relatively high priority at the moment. So I, given my free choice, would literally stitch on nothing else. But I have to stitch on other things. Right. There is an enormous bumblebee in my house. I may get up in a minute to deal with it, or we may just let it find its own way. So I've been really enjoying stitching on this. So this is my style of project bag. This was done with the fusible interfacing. You can see it's floppier. It's fine. I don't know if you can see that. I can see that. I put it on a magnetic clasp because I was showing off. I didn't have it. It doesn't have a zip. It has a magnetic clasp, and it's got this Union Jack that I was practicing quilt square. So that's where it's staying. I've got all my threads, which is working out really well on these. After I had done my video talking about this, I watched Teresa Little Stitcher's video on the Paco thread organizer, and I was like, you know, because she knows what she's doing with a full coverage. I was like, oh no, have I invested in all the wrong thing? But actually I looked at it and I was like, do you know what, it's fine. You know, there are things about that which are marginally easier. You don't have to do the sort of looped knot to put your stitches on. You can just sort of put them around a peg. But also, I've already done that by now, so that's fine. And they fit 50 on, and these only fit 20 on. But also, I have mine all colour organised. I think that's fine. There was one other thing about them. Oh, like it comes with a thing here. But honestly, seeing her do the faffy cutting and gluing of her symbols on it, I was pretty happy with my method for that. So yeah, for the sake of the money, I think I bought 5 of these for less than one of those. So I can get 100 flosses on mine and one of those gets 50. I was pretty happy with this. So that is my Gecko Rouge Paxton's Tower and Cottage full coverage. You will be seeing that one again on a regular basis. That is my Stitch 50 project. So this is my 50th year. I'm 49. It's my 50th year. And the goal is to finish it while I am still 50. And 2 weeks ago when I was filming, I'm like, I just don't know. Just don't know if I'll ever finish this. Anyway, now I feel like, yes, I feel like this is doable. We've worked out how many stitches there actually are. We've worked out the percentage of those we've actually done. It is not as terrifying as it once felt like it might be. Good. One other thing that I've been working on. This is a model stitch, but I am going to show you the start of it anyway. Partly because I'm pleased with it, but partly because I have some questions for you. So let me show you. In fact, let me show you the right way up. So it's designed to be that way up. And there are going to be repeat scissors here, here, and here. And these little bits in the middle, I don't know if you can see, but they are pins and needles. And there's going to be a few more pins and needles. So it's going to be a scissor star. It's going to be a Christmas ornament. That is the plan. I've got, you may remember if you were watching me before Christmas, I did a smalls exchange, actually, which I ended up sending to Yasmin. She was my partner in the exchange, and I sent her a pattern which I've called button baubles. So it's got 5 baubles in a row, but each of them are buttons that you stitch. This is Scissor Star, and I've got another one in the works as well that are going to be my Stitching Christmas designs. They are going to come out, I'm really hoping, for June, so that they're in good time if anyone wants to do Christmas in July. Yeah, I'm hoping. So the button baubles one, like I said, I stitched before Christmas. I've got photos of it. That design is ready to go. Scissor Star, hopefully. I quite enjoyed doing this. The thing that you may have noticed is this is on really, 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 really tiny fabric. This is on 56 count. Yeah. I know stitched on 56 count before. I don't know that I ever will again, although I have just bought some other really lovely 56 count fabric, so I might. So I'm doing 1 thread over 2 on 56 count. I'm using 3 colours. One is DMC and 2 are Classic Colourworks, I think, but there will be a DMC conversion that you can use. And at this size, I think that's going to make a really sweet little star-shaped ornament. Obviously, you can stitch it bigger. You can either end up with a bigger ornament or you could finish it in a different way if you wanted to. My real questions are, for those of you who've stitched on 56 count before, or, you know, tinier, what do you do? What do you do about needle and floss? So I'm using 1 strand of floss, and that feels quite thick on this. And I ended up using, I tried my very smallest cross stitch needles and they were just too huge. So I'm now using a quilting needle. Size, they come in different sizes than cross stitch needles. I want to say it's size 10, but I might be wrong on that, but it's tiny and it's sharp. And that's the thing, I was really hoping to find a, you know, a non-sharp needle that would be small enough. But they just don't make them, I don't think. So I don't know, would I be better? I'm not starting this again. If you're going to stitch on this tiny fabric, would you use silk? Is that what I should be looking for? I haven't got any. Oh, I might have 1 skein actually, but it wouldn't work for this, but I might have 1 skein somewhere. And if I'm using silk, what should I be looking for? You know, I hear the sort of soie 103 and soie d'Argent and soie this and soie that. Tiny. So yeah, sewing thread, is that what I should be using? That's thinner than a strand of embroidery floss, isn't it? What would you use if you were stitching on 56 count? I am stitching 1 over 2. I don't know if anyone ever stitches over 1 on 56 count, but it will never be me. I am absolutely confident. I do love it. I mean, I do love the tininess of it. I think it's really working for this, and I think it'll make a really cute model. But it's not straightforward, shall we say. And yeah, needle and floss, I think my choices are probably not ideal, and I would love to know if you've got wisdom or experience on that. Let me know. Right, in fact, I was going to let me know if you would be interested in this. Because I was looking for tiny needles, I ended up buying a whole lot of different brands of cross-stitch needle in the sizes that I normally use, which are 26 and 28, which are the smallest that I think I have ever found. Would you be interested in a video showing the different brands? You know, they vary quite a lot in length, and the sort of eye of the needle is different in different brands. I also bought, just because I've been so curious to try, and they absolutely won't work for the 56 count, the ball tip needles. Have you seen those? The Easy Guide ball tip needles? I haven't tried them yet, but I did buy 1 of those in 26 and 1 in 28 as well. So let me know if you'd be interested in a video comparing different kinds of cross stitch needle, because I have quite a stash at the moment of different kinds of cross stitch needle. Right, couple of things that I wanted to mention for you to have a look at. Deborah over at Kensington Cross Stitch, her latest video, she talks a lot about Colourfastness of floss in particular. And it's not a thing I'd really thought about before, because I'm not stitching heirloom pieces. And people who did stitch heirloom pieces 100 years ago, you know, you can see their colours were not colour fast because they've all faded. But she recounted an incident which made me think, yeah, okay, I can see why there's some, you know, value even in those slightly non-heirloom pieces of making sure your flosses are reasonably colour fast. And she talked about a method that Jean Farritt uses. I have not really watched Jean Farritt, but I've always heard people talk about her in really awed tones, as she is the guru who knows this stuff. Yeah, and it was really interesting. It wasn't just these brands are good, these brands are not good, these colours are colour fast, these are not colour fast, but actually what you can do about it to ensure that you can stitch with whichever brand you like, whichever dyer you like, but process your floss in a way that ensures that at least minimizes the risk of having color running. You know, so it's just if your piece happens to get wet, you know, mine it would be I would spill tea on it or something like that, or it might be that the dog would get hold of it, but mostly it would be I would spill tea on this, or like I'd be going out and it would be raining and you know, it would get through, that sort of thing. And actually that could be really annoying. Could be really annoying if you've been working for months and months and months on a project and then it gets slightly damp and one of the colours bleeds into all the others. So definitely go and check that out, and maybe even go and check out Jean Farish and what she has to say about it and what she does to ensure colourfastness of threads. You should also go and check out the Diddy Stitcher. That's Helen, who is model stitching a different design for me. And her last 2 videos, she's actually talked about the process of model stitching and how she approaches that. And in her most recent video, she's really honest and open about what she calls her spicy brain. And she's just beginning the process. And she talks about this. I'm not breaking any kind of confidentiality, but she talks about the fact she is beginning the process of a diagnosis potentially for ADHD and or autism, and how those things maybe are part of the reason why she has a brain that's very attuned to detail. I don't know what she does in her real life, but she said, you know, that is what her real life job is like. You know, maybe she's a copy editor or something like that. And it certainly makes her an absolutely brilliant model stitcher, because she just spots all my mistakes. And there are mistakes, of course there are. That's why I almost never, I don't think I ever have published a design before I've stitched it, because I just don't see all of those mistakes when, particularly not when they're on the screen, but even if I print it out, I don't always see them. And sometimes I will be the person that when I go in and change a detail, I will add a different mistake and all that sort of stuff. And so she's so brilliant. She's just, you know, some of them she's kind of, I don't quite know if that's what you intended or didn't, and it never is. It's always a mistake. And some of them she's like, no, definitely, because there's enough of a repeating pattern that you can tell. So it's just going to be so much better a pattern, so much more accurate a chart after her stitching of it. And her stitching is beautiful, so the model will be beautiful. Because it's the first time I think she's done any kind of paid model stitching, and it's also the first time I've used a paid model stitcher. I feel really bad, but we agreed a price that I think is not really as much as she is worth. And if you are a designer in the market for model stitchers in the future, I would snap her up. I really would. She's, I know, keeping track of how fast she's able to stitch and that sort of thing, and hopefully she'll be able to work out a more reasonable rate at the end of this, and I will have to work out whether I can afford her at the rate that she really deserves in future. But I think she is doing a brilliant job, and it's just a really fascinating insight into the process of model stitching, the kind of pressures that people might feel. You know, if you're someone who thinks, oh, maybe I'd like to be a model stitcher, I'd love it if someone paid me to cross stitch, I would really recommend going and watching her videos and hearing her thoughts on the process, and how it does feel different to just stitching for your own pleasure, and how you work that out with all the other things that you might want to stitch and do. So that's Helen at the Diddy Stitcher. What else? Yeah, so these are my thinky thoughts. I've been mulling this over for a little while. Let me just do plans very quickly first. Plan number 1, finish the wedding piece. Plan number 2, stitch all the model stitches. That is between now and the end of June. Well, in the next month, now mid-June really. I want to finish the Scissor Star. There's the other one in that series, and there's a different Christmas piece that's slightly annoying, but it's fine. I mean, I model stitched it. It's going to be on 18 count Ada, and I used 1 strand of floss, which is what I would normally do. It's what I'm using on the full coverage, but for that particular piece, it just wasn't full enough. So I'm going to stitch it again, still on the 18 count Ada, but using 2 strands of floss. So yeah, so we've got the wedding piece, the scissors, the other piece, and the other piece. Helpful, I know. So I've got 4 things that I really need to do the model stitching for in the next month. I have got other model stitches that I want to do. I need to do the last one in this Fierce Lady series, and also the next medieval one, but they can wait till the summer, I think. So that's mostly all it's going to be, is model stitching plus the full coverage. I might try and sneak a Stitch Your Stash in there, and I might try and sneak a Get Your Kit On in there, but I'm not going to guarantee it in May, and I'm not even going to guarantee it in June. I might. I will try, but I might not. Anyway, so that's plans. It's not very much exciting because I can't really tell you about most of it. Thinky thoughts. Finishing. So one of the things you quite often hear people say, and I definitely think is true, is how cross stitch is kind of looked down on by people who do other kinds of stitching. People who do surface embroidery, people who do crewel work, even sometimes people who do needlepoint, I think. There's a sort of cross stitch is the basic, entry level, boring, childish kind of thing. And obviously we all know that's not true. I mean, I hope if you're watching my channel, you know that's true. I don't think Mothers of Invention is boring or childish or beginner or basic. I think it's quite grown up and also fun, but it, you know, it's not nothing. Anyway, so I hope we don't agree with that, but I was thinking about why is it that it has that reputation? And, you know, there are some reasons for it, aren't there? It is very often the first thing people ever stitch, because there is one stitch, one basic stitch to it, and you can get it in quite big, you can get quite big holed Ada, binker, I think they call it, and, you know, you can stitch with quite chunky needles, and so even for quite young children, it's a safe sort of thing that they can learn, and it's repetitive, and they can use fun colours, and they can produce something. So it is a thing that if somebody's never stitched anything before, you can see why you might start with a cross stitch project. Even as a grown-up, you might start with a cross stitch project because you think, oh, okay, one kind of stitch. There's no sort of guesswork to it. The holes are where the holes are. You know, there's a pattern. I follow it. I get the end result. So it is quite good for beginners. Obviously, as we know, it can get more complicated. The patterns can get more complicated. Once you start doing a full coverage with 88 colours, I promise you, it's not straightforward. Once you start doing patterns with fractional stitches, I don't really like fractional stitches. I don't like the way they look. So I don't mind stitching them, but I don't really love the way they look. I never design with them. I don't think I've ever designed with them, and I don't really plan to. But if you're doing that and you're doing a half stitch here and a quarter stitch there and a quarter stitch the other way over there, quite complicated. Particularly if you've got a designer who really annoys me with this. But you get those charts, don't you, where to show you that it's a half stitch or a quarter stitch or whatever, the symbol of the colour thread is so hidden that you are left guessing to try and work out what colour you're supposed to be using for that stitch. So, you know, and then you introduce back stitching or specialty stitches or beading, and you start stitching on very fine count fabric, so the counting is quite complicated. Suddenly, you know, this is a proper thing. You know, not all stitching can just be dashed off in a minute by someone who's never done it before. It's quite hard. But even those pieces that are quite hard, I think don't seem to have the same cachet as a surface embroidery piece, for example, or a crewel work piece or something like that. And there may be all kinds of reasons for it. I don't know. I have done all kinds of embroidery, pretty much all kinds of embroidery. I've done little bits of gold work. I've done silk shading. I've done beading at the Royal School of Needlework. I've done crewel work. you know, I've done a lot of stitching in a lot of different techniques on a lot of different fabrics with a lot of different flosses. And at the moment, I'm really, really enjoying cross stitch. And I'm not finding that it's boring, and I'm not finding that it's basic, and I'm not finding that it's beginner. And I am finding that there are really, really beautiful patterns out there. For a long time, the reason I didn't cross stitch a whole lot was because I didn't know where to find beautiful patterns that I would like. But they are there, and the internet has opened that up, and there's no reason anyone can't find something that suits them to stitch, I think. But I wonder if one of the reasons why cross stitch continues to be looked down upon a bit or undervalued a bit is to do with the way cross stitch projects get finished or don't get finished. So this isn't about judgment. I promise you, if your preferred method of finishing your cross stitch piece is just to put it in a drawer or a box under your bed and get on with the next piece, that's fine. That's absolutely fine, because it's your hobby and it's your stitching and you do what you want with it. But if the only kinds of cross stitch finishes people see, and I guess I mean by this people who don't cross stitch themselves, if what they see are cutesy little card toppers, for example. I mean, card toppers, they're great, but what do you do with a card? You sort of stick it in a drawer? Stick it in the bin? It doesn't say this is something that should be treasured and loved and be on your wall or in a frame or whatever forever. A card sort of says to me, this is kind of disposable. Or what if they see cross stitches that are badly framed? Or what if they see cross stitches that are hanging on a Christmas tree, but, you know, with wonky sewing and bad thing? And it just looks like, okay, this person who stitched this just thought it was a fun little transient, ephemeral, let's go with that, ephemeral kind of thing that is not really of any great substance or worth. And it is fine. Again, let me say, it is fine if that is what you want to do with your stitching. If you just want to stitch cards for people, or if you just want to stitch things that are meaningful to you and just stick them in the nearest photo frame and be done with it, it is fine. I'm just saying, if that's what people see when they see cross stitching, it is not a surprise to me that they also think this isn't hugely valuable, this isn't heirloom, this isn't precious, this isn't important, it feels a bit disposable. And although there are embroidery patterns of that sort, I think it's much less common in embroidery to do those sort of, what, you know, sort of here for a few minutes and then gone thing. You don't often see hand embroidery, well, I haven't often seen hand embroidery on a card. And the one that I did once get, I kept that for years because it was stunning. It was absolutely stunning handwork. And if I buy cards like that, I never give them to people. I just buy them and frame them because I think they're stunning. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I tell you, one of the things that has been making me think about this is because there are different kinds of ways that we can finish, aren't there? And different techniques and different styles and levels of finish. So I think, let's say there's your basic level of finish. That is, and I'm going to say, and I don't really mean basic, but anyway, I'm going to say anyway, like Annie on The Proper Stitcher, she's all about finish your project, finish your project. It doesn't have to be perfect, finish it, display it, do it. And I really love that. I really love that. Don't just think, oh, well, no one will ever want to look at it. If you love it and you want to look at it and you want it in your house, have a go. And her tutorials, she uses a lot of glue. You know, she'll have a big bow or a big whatever. That's how she'll do it, and it'll be done. And her finishes, you can definitely see, are getting better over the couple of years she's been doing them on Flosstube, but they are intended to be things that anyone can just have a go at. Great. Anyone can just have a go. So I do a lot of finishes in hoops. I think that's the easiest smart finish. You put it in the hoop, you make sure it's tightly pulled, you just neaten up the back. You can just like stick felt over it or stitch it around the back to hold it in place. Job's a good one. I do that a lot, and I think it looks really nice. But you know, your finishes do not have to be long and complicated. I guess the sort of next, the next different stage, let's say that, the sort of Vonna Pfeiffer finish. Now, I think Vonna's terrific. I really do. I mean, I don't live in America, so I'm never going to send her my stuff to finish, but she's clearly very, very expert at what she does. Her finishes are beautifully done. She has, I mean, her tutorial videos are tremendous. They really are. If you want to know how to make a particular kind of finish, go and check out Vonna Pfeiffer, because she will show you how to do it. But I kind of want to say as well, I still think the Vonna Pfeiffer style, it's, you know, it is intended to be ordinary and achievable, and do this with your projects, and they won't necessarily last a lifetime, and they certainly won't be heirlooms probably, but they will look really great in your homes, if that's the sort of style of, you know, I mean, stitch for your style of home, obviously. She does still use glue. She does less glue, or more kind of thoughtful glue perhaps than you get with Annie. I just have a thing about glue. I don't really like using it at all in my finishes if I can avoid it. You know, but she does really great things like making cording out of the same floss you've stitched with, so it matches really well. You know, really thoughtful, good things that she does. Not all of it is my style, but even when it's not your style, the technique's terrific. And I do think that's the sort of level, if you look at a really nice one of Annie's finishes, or a really nice one of Vonna's finishes, you look at it and think, okay, this person wanted us to look at that work. They wanted us to see what they had done because it was beautiful and important and worthwhile, and so they put it on show in that sort of way. And then you get to Katie Strachan. Yeah. So Katie Strachan, I think it's really fascinating that she came via the world of surface embroidery. So, you know, you've all seen her incredible caskets that she does, that, you know, that are surface embroidery and gold work and stump work, and, you know, they are not cross stitch. She has done that casket where she applied a cross stitch piece to it, and I thought that was a really fabulous crossover. But that's sort of really indicative of what she's doing. She's taking the kind of finishes that you see, I mean, hers are at the very high end of embroidery, and applying them to cross stitch. And suddenly you've got a piece that you're like, well, you should keep that forever. I mean, that casket with, it was a modern folk embroidery piece, wasn't it, that she applied to it. You're like, yeah. I mean, in 200 years, somebody's going to want to be looking at that. And even her small finishes, like her pillow finishes with the beaded edging, or the fact that she uses silk taffeta to back the pieces, or the trims that she'll use. So it's not just the fact that she likes to stitch with silk and she stitches on very fine linen. It is also in the quality of the products and the techniques that she uses for finishing her cross stitch are the same as those that you would use with really high-end surface embroidery. And therefore, I think you end up with products that anybody would look at that and go, goodness me, that's beautiful. That is an heirloom piece. That is as good as any kind of needlework I've seen. And it's not just the needlework, it's not just the products that she uses, it's the care that she puts into finishing. So, you know, you do you, obviously. Like I say, perfectly good way of finishing is put in a drawer. Fine. Perfectly good way of finishing, stick it on the front of a card, or put it in a, you know, photo frame, do whatever. But also, if you really value your cross stitch, if you stitch something you think, yeah, that's beautiful, and I want people to notice it and to look at it and say, yeah, that is beautiful, actually, then think about how you finish it. And it doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It definitely doesn't have to be sending off to a professional framer or finisher. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. There are amazing tutorials out there on YouTube. There are great tutorials for lacing and framing, for making pillows, for adding rickrack, for biscornus, flat folds, stand-ups, all sorts of things. You can do all kinds of things with your finished cross stitch that just say, this is a proper piece of stitching, that is beautiful, that I want you to look at. There's a really fabulous scene in a book by Tessa Dare, and I can never remember the name of it. But anyway, it's a couple who've got married even though they hate each other, you know, classic romance scene, and they're traveling back to his country home for their honeymoon, and she's doing some embroidery, and he asks her what she's making it for, and she says, oh, you know, maybe a chair cover or something like that. Anyway, ages later in the book, she sees it. He asks if he can have it, and when it's done, and she's like, I mean, you can if you want. Ages later, she's finally into his bedroom, and she notices her embroidery on the wall, and it's been framed. And he just says, we don't sit on art in this house. Her embroidery is art, and that's for looking at, not for sitting on. Which doesn't mean you shouldn't make beautiful cushions or chair covers if that's what you want to do. But if you want people to recognise the value of your stitching, and your stitching is valuable, then think about how you finish it in a way that shows how much you value it, and then maybe they will value it as well. There we go. Those are Ros's thinky thoughts for the day. I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to know what your favourite ways of finishing things are. Are you proud to put your cross stitch on display? Are you slightly ashamed of it? Do you hide it away in a drawer? Do you just not finish things because you don't know what to do? Have you watched Katie Strachan and been inspired? I have followed one of her tutorials. I did a beaded edging on a piece, and it was not that hard, and it was really fun to do, and it does look fabulous. So give it a go. That's what I say. I will be back in a couple of weeks' time, will I? No, because in 2 weeks' time I will be at the wedding. I think probably I will film later because it is then half term and the May bank holiday. So I might try and film on the Sunday. Normally I film on the Saturday to upload for the Sunday. And I might try and film on the Sunday to have it uploaded for the Monday that is the next last May bank holiday. We've had a lot of bank holidays in May. So anyway, I will see you in just over 2 weeks, I think. Thank you for watching. Like I say, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and you enjoy watching these. That would be great. I'm thinking we might try and have a 500 subscriber giveaway, and I've got 1 or 2 ideas of exciting things we might have in that. So, you know, who knows how long it'll take to get there. Could be forever. But anyway, I'm waffling, so I'll stop. Thank you. See you next time. Bye.